Hello, service coordinators. Welcome to the Service Coordinator Podcast. This is episode number 15. If you have not subscribed to the Service Coordinator Podcast already, please do so. Please leave comments, hit the like button, all that sorts of stuff. Looks better for the podcast. Today, I am joined with Juliana Bilowich. I'm allowed to say it two different ways. She is the Director of Housing Operations and Policy at LeadingAge. How are you, Juliana?
Hey, Dan. I'm doing great. Nice job on my last name.
I said it well both ways, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
So you are joining us from lovely Washington, D.C. this morning, huh?
Yeah, that's right. And it's a gray day here. I hope it's sunnier where people are listening in from.
Yeah, well, we're not sure, but it's definitely sunny where I am right now, as you can see the sun coming in through the window. So how long have you been with LeadingAge?
I've been with LeadingAge about as long as the pandemic has been going on. So it's an easy way to remember it. I started a week or two before everything started locking down. So apparently I have an office somewhere, but but I'm not sure because I've been with LeadingAge this whole time and we've been working remotely.
So where were you before LeadingAge?
I was with the National Affordable Housing Management Association, so like the longest name ever for an association, also doing affordable housing policy work, but not focused on senior housing. And now at LeadingAge, I focus solely on affordable senior housing.
Senior affordable housing, okay. So what are the biggest issues that you're dealing with right now? Is it policy pertaining to just operators? Is it just policy pertaining just to service coordinators? What's your main day-to-day look like?
Yeah. My main day today looks like I try to find time to eat because I'm like talking to so many people. But my job in my title, you can hear I have two key words. So Director of Policy and Operations, right? So there are two pieces there. One is operations. So I help people manage their day-to-day stuff. So that's service coordinators. It's also maintenance folks at housing communities. It's also executive directors, right? So it's this whole gamut of folks working and serving older adults in affordable housing. And then I do policy. That's the other piece, right? So that's working with lawmakers and policymakers. So folks at HUD, folks in Congress, trying to help them but better understand what it means to run and work in affordable housing and try to make better decisions and better policies to help that work, to help it work better.
Right. All right. So why don't we have service coordinators in every senior affordable housing community?
Oh my goodness. I ask HUD this almost every day. This is exactly, and Congress, it's a huge problem. I think we've all seen the value of service coordinators, and obviously I don't need to say it on this podcast, right. But we've certainly seen it in the last year and a half, if not before that as well.
So is it always just come down to funding? Is that always the issue? Or I mean, are operators, or is that service coordination? Are they always looking to put service coordinators in their buildings, or is that something new within the last 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think there's an easy answer and there's a not so easy answer, right? And even if we say, why is there not a service coordinator in every building? Even that's not enough, right? It's a good question, but that's not enough because you might have one service coordinator and you might have 150 plus residents trying to make use of that service coordination. So that's also not enough, right? Then we need two, or we need one and a half. So we need really robust service coordination throughout the whole senior housing portfolio. And so the question really is why isn't that happening, and what do we need to do to make that happen? And I have already mentioned there are two kind of key players that I work with, right? And one is Congress, and Congress are the folks who have the money. So that's the funding side. And then there's HUD, and HUD are the folks who decide how to make things happen. So they're the process people. So we have funding, and we have the way in which the funding creates more service coordination programs, right? So both of those pieces are lacking something right now, because actually less than half of HUD's flagship senior housing program, Section 202, less than half of those buildings have even one service coordinator in them. So it's a huge problem. Yeah.
So out of all the old kind of HUD 202 buildings, only half of them have service coordinators in them?
Yeah, less than half. I think it's 43% or so, 42, 43%. Yeah.
Wow. So we're not talking about pracs or light techs, anything like that. We're talking about just the old. Wow.
Oh yeah, LIHTC. So you're talking about the tax credit communities. That's an even that's an even bigger problem, because
Yeah.
they very, very rarely have service coordination, because there's no mechanism for it unless they find money somewhere else. So it's not there's not a program for that.
Right. And typically they have funding, and it's enough for like a 1 hour a week service coordinator or something like that. And
Right, exactly.
no point sometimes, no point.
Yeah.
So what can you tell us about upcoming funding for service coordinator programs? You know, last I heard, or not really last I heard, but we were hoping that maybe we'd see a NOFA, you know, in spring, but now we're into the fall. So what are you thinking there?
Are we talking about spring and fall in the Western Hemisphere? Right. You gotta make sure when, yeah, exactly. It's like spring of 2020, 2021. Yeah. So, what's going on with that? And again, we have these two pieces, right? We have the funding, and then we have the processes. And so what we have right now is kind of an interesting situation. We have a brand new person, and really brand new people in charge of service coordination and of grants and things like that at HUD. So we have a whole new kind of direction that HUD is trying to go in, and an opportunity, right? New leadership, new partnership, and in fact, for the first time since I've been around, you know, I get on a meeting with them, and it's a room full of people who are deeply committed to service coordination. That is fantastic. I mean, we can just like celebrate that win, right? We have a lot of work still to do, but that's huge. And what, you know, when you have a new person in place, we all have dealt with staff turnover and things like that, and new leadership, right? So when it's a major opportunity, right? You have clay, you want to shape it. What's the new direction? And so we've been meeting with this new team that's in place, and we're saying, there is something really wrong here. First of all, like we already established, there's not enough service coordination. So what's going on there? And second of all, the funding that's available for the service coordination programs that exist is often very, very late. And that's just unacceptable, right? So if I were, you know, 5-10 minutes late to a meeting once, like, all right, but if I'm 9 months late paying a service coordinator grant, and I'm months late every year, there's something wrong, right? There's something going on in the process. So we can talk about, you know, the next kind of rounds of funding that we're expecting, but at the same time, we really have to talk about like what's broken about this.
What about now?
Yeah. So you're right. There is a NOFA in the works. A NOFA is a notice of funding availability. It's the way that the government lets people apply for funds that are available from Congress. So we have this for all different kinds of things, and there is a NOFA coming out for new service coordinators. And if you're a service coordinator already, congratulations, right? Because like we've already said, there is just not enough service coordination programs out there. There's not enough money. When I talk about, you know, the funding that's late, I'm talking about funding to renew the service coordination programs that are already in place. So it's not new. It's not like hiring a new service coordinator or establishing a new program at a community that doesn't have one. It's renewing the salary, the benefits, the program that's already in place. And that's what's like late every year, right? But for a really long time, we haven't had new service coordination. So we haven't had funding to kind of broaden the reach. And what's happening now is we finally did get some of this money through, and from Congress, and now HUD has taken a little bit longer than we thought to create this NOFA. which is, will allow people to apply, will allow housing communities to apply to establish a new program. And so we're expecting it in the summer of 2022. So let's be real specific there, in July or August of 2022. And they're, as we've established, they've been a little delayed on this, but we know they're working on it. We don't know exactly how many new service coordinators it will fund. It depends on how much money is kind of left over after we renew everybody else, right? So, but what we do know is that it's not going to be enough to reach everybody, right? Everybody's going to apply. Only few are going to get it. We have a lot of work to do, right? To get more of this money out there.
All right. So what about what Biden's trying to push through Congress right now? Is that have anything to do with the funds that you're saying should be available in July of next year, or is that they already have those funds and they're just figuring out how they're going to disperse them?
That's right. That's exactly right. So those funds, thank goodness, are not up for debate. Those have already been approved. They're just sitting over at HUD waiting to be dispersed to you all.
Right.
What Congress and the president are working on right now, and I was worried you were going to ask about this because it's so up in the air. Like every hour, we're hearing about a different negotiation, so it's difficult to talk about. Because by the time this airs, it could be totally wrong. But what we're seeing in there now is, unfortunately, we had worked very hard to get more new money for service coordinators in there, not just renewal money, but new money. That's not in there anymore as of this hour. Very, very frustrating. What's still in there is a decent amount for new senior housing. And that new senior housing that would be built, so new 202s through HUD, would all have to have a service coordinator. That's been HUD's policy, building new housing, that it all has to have a service coordination program. So that's good, right? So we're going in the right direction, but we're not addressing, the lack of service coordination in the housing that already exists.
Exactly. All right. Well, what could service coordinators do specifically to push service coordination to the future, how to advocate for themselves, for their residents, as far as more and more funding? What's the best thing a service coordinator could do? Is it have all the residents get together and have politicians come to their buildings? Is it write letters to HUD reps, or what can service coordinators do?
Oh, I love this line of questioning, Dan. And I feel like I know what the service coordinators are thinking. They're like, you want me to do one more thing? Like, are you serious? So service coordinators do fantastic work, right? And so just by the work that they're doing, we think it's enough to show how valuable they are, right? And so it's really us that needs to convince Congress and HUD, hey, we need to take some action and expand these programs. And the data that folks spend a lot of time, right, reporting, the Standards for Success reporting, right around this time of year, all of that needs to be used better so that we have a good leg to stand on when we're asking for more money. All of that said, there are things I think that can be done. Like those things that you mentioned are fantastic ideas. So yeah, we LeadingAge and others often have action alerts, right? Where we send an email and everybody ignores it. But really it just takes, like 2 minutes to click on the link and the script is already filled and you just put in your address and it goes to the right person in Congress, right? So that kind of thing actually does make a difference, right? So I used to work on the Hill and the senator would walk by and say, how many calls or emails have we gotten in support versus against something, right? So and we're like tallying it up, So we really do ask folks to just like take those 2 minutes, click through that link. So that's one thing. And the other thing is certainly, getting residents involved, hosting tours and site visits. And all of this is something that LeadingAge can help set up, right? We can like plan the whole thing for you. So it's, there are a lot of opportunities in terms of taking action. But if we back up a bit and we think about what else can be done in order to get services and service coordination at the property, we've talked, Dan, up until now mostly about grants. And grants are only one way that service coordinators are funded in HUD-assisted housing. And the other way is through your regular budget. And so for PRAC properties, you can actually request a budget-driven service coordination program. And so service coordinators are rarely on the side of things where they're like, working with the property to manage the budget and things. So this can feel a little bit like outside of the wheelhouse, right? And people who manage budgets are also like, wait, you want me to like request another thing in there? Like, you want me to give HUD another reason to deny it? Like, so I understand it's not easy, but that is also a really good avenue for getting service coordination programs to the property, right? And we're working with HUD to consistently approve that. The problem right now is that HUD has like a pie that's only this big, and it's already not feeding everybody, right? And so what HUD needs to do is ask for a bigger pie from Congress so that they can fund these higher requests for service coordinators. So it all kinds of comes back to the way HUD and Congress are working together to improve these programs.
So the PRAC's getting it written into your properties, but is that you can only do that when you request your next year's budget? Is that so that could happen anytime for the operator, or you could just request it anytime you want to?
No, it should really be on your budget cycle. So you should build it into your budget cycle. You could do a mid-year amendment, but that's a lot of work. So, really, if you're looking ahead to your next budget cycle and you get those in 120 days in advance anyway, so it's probably coming up, and you want to like put all your pieces together. You want to create some kind of supportive services plan. You want to talk to your HUD counterparts, right? So it'll take some work to set that up. And target your next kind of budget cycle. And the other thing that's really key for PRACs that most people don't know about, I speak to rooms of people about this and I ask who knows about this, and like one or two hands go up, so, is the $15 per unit per month supportive services fee. And this is something, it's only for PRACs, and it's not for the service coordinator. It's not, an additional amount for your budgets, your program budgets. It's a separate amount to fill gaps in terms of what the property wants to be providing in terms of services, activities, transportation, things like that, versus what they have in their operational budget. So if a property has ever wanted to have a bus that goes to the grocery store for residents, but they can't afford it, or has wanted to maybe hire a person from the community to come in and teach nutritional classes, can't afford it. Anytime there's some kind of activity that's for the well-being of residents, that's targeted to help them age in community, anything like that, can be covered by a up to $15 per unit per month supportive services fee, right? And it's not easy to get. Like HUD's not just going to come and hand you $15, right? Like per unit. Like you've got to justify it. You have to build it into that supportive services plan. And it's much easier to do if you have a service coordinator at the property who's already has that plan, who maybe can coordinate it, who can oversee those kinds of activities.
So that doesn't go towards the actual service coordinator's budget. It sounds like it's going towards what the service coordinator probably shouldn't be doing, which is, well, I guess you wouldn't pay for a bus, but not that the service coordinator is driving them around, but transportation, activities. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like something that could layer on top. Now, is that only if you already have a service coordinator in the property?
No, it's for any PRAC. It's just a little easier, we think, to do if there's a service coordinator there. I mean, and what it does is it's trying to make a more well-rounded property that has services and can help folks really age in community there.
Yeah, definitely. Well, awesome. Do you have anything else you want to say to the country, the service coordinator nation?
The service coordinator nation. Well, I have to say a huge thank you for everything that service coordinators have done this year and a half plus. And I know that the communities that I visit that don't have a service coordinator are sorely missing one, right? And so we're just in awe of all of the work that you all do. And so, yeah, we all have our work cut out for us. You all have a really strong advocate in LeadingAge for more service coordination, for better support from HUD, for more funding from Congress. But it's a partnership, right? And we often try to have conversations. We have meetings, calls, to try to help folks become more aware of the resources that are there. So, like the $15 per unit per month, or like a new NOFA that might come out, right? We try to help folks stay engaged, let us know what you need, and then we can translate that for Congress and for HUD and say, we need this kind of funding, we need this kind of guidance, we need these kinds of resources, right? So it's a partnership, and so we'd love for folks to get more involved. We have a monthly work group that meets and tries to tackle these kinds of issues. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, I've been around service coordination for almost 15 years. And, I think this is the reason we started the Service Coordinator podcast, is just get service coordinators more involved in the work they're doing just outside of their building, because we know that service coordination in the future and how the nation is aging, it's not going anywhere. And I think service coordinators are going to be a big part of that. So Juliana, thank you so much for joining the Service Coordinator podcast. You are welcome back anytime.
Wonderful.
And like I said, if you guys have not subscribed yet, please do so. Also go check out the Service Coordination, which is a free platform for service coordinators to network and find jobs and share resources and stuff like that. So Juliana, thank you very much, and have a great day in DC.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll see you. Thank you.